to our practice for Asmita, we're going to be working on different aspects of our ego by doing a practice that challenges our balance and puts us in some unusual situations and unusual movements compared to what we normally do in our yoga practice. And we're going to use the practice as a way to let ourselves move more fluidly through our movement, but also internally, so that we don't get stuck on the judgments of the ego or the things that our ego likes to be harsh about, or the things that the ego likes to build us up. So we're going to do some balance, but balance kind of in a different way. We'll start out in seated, drawing the hands to the heart. When we bring the hands into the heart center and we bow the head slightly, it's our symbolic gesture of moving from the mind, from a place of analyzing and judging, down into the heart space. So we're in a place of feeling and expressing compassion toward ourselves. Letting yourself settle into that space. Allow your hands to drop down. Now I'm going to swing my legs out onto my mat. And we're going to start with a roll down to warm up the spine and to engage the abdominal area. And starting by tucking my tailbone underneath, rolling my spine down as slowly and carefully as I can. Now if I get to a spot where I feel stuck, I'm going to just hold on to the back of my legs. And I invite you to do the same thing if you feel like you get to a spot that's difficult, especially as you get lower. And then we're going up the same way. Peeling the head up, drawing the belly in, rolling up the spine. On the way up, you can use your legs as well if you need them. We're going to do that same thing again, roll down. And roll back up. Coming up high onto the sitting bones, we're going to rock back and come into a boat. Keeping your heart lifted, spread your toes out, lift your legs. And this is where we add another layer of challenge. We're going to try to keep the legs right where they are and roll the spine down just like we did before. Trying to be as stable as you can. Coming up into this squared off position, the arms right over the shoulders, the legs with the knees stacked over the hips. And then trying to roll up, moving the legs as little as you need to get up there. And then one more time like that, roll it down. Find square. Roll it back up. Lift into a nice proud boat. Drop the feet down. Bring your hands behind you. We're going to start to rock the knees from side to side. This is one of my favorite warm-up movements because it gets the movement into the hips, into the lower back area where we tend to be really tight. Now the second round, of course, we're going to make it more challenging. We're going to do the same movement without using your arms for support behind you. Rolling open and rolling closed. It's just a different way to engage your core and make sure that you're moving from here rather than using your arms to compensate. We tend to start to use our arms before we really need to, just because we're trained to. We're used to having our hand there to push on. As you come up into center, So you might have wiggled forward on your mat. You can scoot back, come up into a boat. Open your knees, bring your hands together. You can flare your toes out to the sides. Draw the knees together, draw the big toes toward each other. Drop the feet down. So this time we're going to roll the legs over to the side. Let yourself come down into a forward bend. Come all the way up, side bend to the right. Now as I go to the left, as I go toward the direction that my knees are bending, I'm going to do this spiral and lift. Coming back to center, side bend to the right. And then spiral to the left. You can let this hip follow you up and around. You'll see that lifting as I reach up. Dropping it down as I go into the side bend. One more twist. As you come into center, roll to the other side without putting your hands down. Arranging your legs, go into a forward bend just to get comfortable on this side. Inhale to come up. I'm going to side bend to the left, so towards your feet. Coming up and spinning around in the direction that your knees are pointing, reaching up through your fingertips, feeling this hip follow you into that spiral. Come back through center, go into your side bend. Lifting up, reaching. You can really hold each end for a few breaths if you like. Or you can just alternate back and forth with one breath. Exhaling to twist. Inhaling to come back to center, exhale to side bend. So it's up to you if you want to go slowly and do a few breaths per movement, or if you want to just make that a flow with one breath for each. And we come back up into center, bring the feet there. So now I'm going to keep my arms out and just roll center and side. Feeling that the movement is controlled with the core. You're just rocking your weight to the center of your pelvis. I'm going to rock onto the outside of my left hip and then back into center and to my right hip. And to the middle. Now the next way that we're going to engage the core by not using the arms is just changing into some traditional leg positions that we do a lot in yoga. So here I have my legs crossed in Sukhasana, and I'm going to rock back, uncross, lift, maybe it's the straight version of boat, and then I'm going to cross. Each time you uncross and cross, you're going to alternate legs. And we can really add any leg movement or any leg shape that you like into that. So let's try another one. Now we're going to go into Baddha Konasana. Come up and then out into a wide V. Just be careful that you don't push your lower back too far. Cross. Cross the other way. Baddha Konasana. And wide legs. Put them down carefully. Okay, this is our last round here. We cross one way, we cross the other way. Soles of the feet join. And then the tough one, legs go out. Carefully place them down and draw them back. Very nice. Okay, let's roll over onto hands and knees. We'll come into tabletop. And then right here in tabletop, there's a great move that I like to use to engage the lower belly, which is hard to connect to. All we have to do is tuck the toes underneath, and I'm going to lift my knees up until my shins are parallel to the floor. So once I do that, the lower belly really has to lift and give support to my lower back so that I don't sag. I'm trying to keep the same straight line in my back that I usually have when I'm in table. So this is a pretty challenging shape. You can rest yourself down anytime that you need to. We'll drop down, open the knees out to the sides, and come back into a wide leg child's pose. Inhale, come forward. Bring the knees back underneath the hips. You're going to tuck your toes underneath, come into that floating table. Get your back lined up. Now take your right leg and send it straight back from the hip. And hold it like that. Feel the work in your other leg. Okay, bring the right leg down. Take the left leg straight back. Come back into your balancing table, your hovering table. Lower that down and sway the hips from side to side. Now I like to use that as a transition into downward facing dog. Tuck your toes underneath, just slightly lift your knees, find that hovering position. You're engaging the lower belly right there so that you can scoop back, make the spine long, and then lift into downward facing dog. Once you're in your downward facing dog, you can pedal the feet, start to get yourself comfortable there. Take an exhale, drop your knees down, lower down into child's pose. We'll start to go into our tricky balance transitions. Inhale up into kneeling mountain. Then bring your hands down so that they're right at shoulder height. Draw your belly in. Shift your weight over to your left knee or your left shin, and as carefully as you can, bring your right foot up in front of you. Now this is a good amount of pressure on your left knee, so if you need to, throw a blanket or throw a cushion underneath that knee. Shift your weight back, pull your knee in, fold down into child's pose. Take a big inhale, come up. Shift your weight to the right. Lift your left leg carefully. Feel that wobbling. You're going to wobble with this one. And then lean forward. Okay, come back. As carefully as you can, draw the foot in, fold down. Inhale, come up. So we're going to do that same thing again with the right foot. Shift your weight to the left side. Start to pick your right foot up. Step it forward. Lean into your lunge. You can drop your hands down if you really want to get that forward lean. Just be careful with your knee. You'll see that as I come out of it, I'm going from this lunging position to drawing my hips back, getting my hips squared over my knee, shifting my balance back, and drawing my foot back. Especially the first couple times you do this, you might have to drop your toe to the mat just to make it happen with your balance. Inhale, come up. We'll go to the other side. Bring the arms down. Shift your weight to the right. Take your left leg forward. You might want to wiggle your foot even farther forward so that you can sink into your lunge. Arms can be up, or you can bring them down to your sides. Be cautious with your front knee, because if your stance isn't wide enough, then you might have to wiggle your foot farther forward in order to deepen your lunge without aggravating your knee. Shift back. Stabilize. Draw your knee in. Fold down. This time we're going to add another element, but we'll start out the same way. We inhale, come up kneeling mountain, bring the arms out front for your balance. Shift to your left side, bring your right foot out front. The slower it comes out, the better. You'll notice if I start to wobble, I kind of throw the foot up there. But when you go fast, you're just using momentum to make the movement happen, and that's exactly what we don't want to do here. Think about going as slowly as you can. Okay, now I'm going to curl my back toes underneath, and I'm going to start to lift that knee. So I come into a high lunge. Angle your weight forward. I'm putting my weight into my right leg. And then I'm going to shift right up into standing, so gracefully, into stork. Good, so hold your stork. If you're wobbling, just embrace that wobbling. The challenge is making you stronger. And we're going to go back the same way. You're going to shift your weight to your right foot. Reach your left toes back. Reach back, reach back. Land softly. Place your knee down. Release your back toes. Shift your weight back. So I'm squaring my hip over my knee. Taking the weight away from my front foot. As carefully as I can, I'm drawing it in. Placing the knee down and folding. Take your inhale, come up. Let's do that on the other side. Shift your weight to the right. Step your left leg forward. Okay, now I'm going to tuck my back toes under. Lift the knee. Find your way into a high lunge. Start to shift yourself forward so that your weight comes onto the left foot. Draw yourself up. Lift the knee into stork. And we hold for a little while here. Keep your breath moving. If you fall out of it, totally fine. Just notice what your brain tells you and then come back into the pose. We're going to make our way back. Shift your weight lower onto the left leg. Reach the right toes back and down. Gracefully tap the mat. Release your right knee. Let the toes come out. Now I'm going to shift my weight back so my hip is over my knee. Controlling the movement as I draw my left knee back and fold. Okay, take your inhale, walk yourself forward into table. I'm going to show you another way I like to incorporate slow, controlled movements. Tuck your toes under, lift the knees up into that hovering table. Use the scoop with the lower belly to shift your hips back and up. The right leg is going to sweep up and start to bend underneath and draw in. So I'm shifting my weight forward toward the hands, and I'm picking up the knee into my chest, just kind of hovering, holding it there. Now as carefully as you can, you're going to place your foot onto the mat, like that. That is a transition where we really like to just throw the leg up there because it makes it easier using momentum. But when you slow it down, much more challenging. Okay, we're going to bring it back the same way. Lift the foot up. Hover the knee. Shift it back really slowly. Shift your weight back, stretch the leg out. Place your right foot down. We'll do the same thing on the left leg, lifting it up behind your three-legged dog. Bend your left knee, draw it underneath your body, and shift your body weight forward. Tuck the knee underneath you, so hold it there. Take another breath. Ever so carefully, place your foot onto the floor. And I could probably use a block underneath my hand to give myself some more space. If you're really struggling with getting your foot up in between your hands, use a block underneath there. It gives you more space. Okay, so before I go back the other way, we're actually going to step up toward the top of the mat. So shift your weight onto your left foot. Bring your shoulders up. Carefully and slowly come up into standing. Turn yourself sideways on the mat. Nice big stance. One of my favorite poses, the five-pointed star. So the five-pointed star is one of my favorites because it is so balanced and so open. When we're standing like this, the feet are totally rooted into the ground. I'm lifting slightly up through my inner thighs, up through the midline of my belly to the crown of my head, right up to the ceiling. My arms are open, my fingers are expanding out. So the grounding and the lifting is very well balanced in here. The prana and the apana is really well balanced. From this five-pointed star, I'm going to start to bend my knee and shift my weight to the right. As I do, this left leg just lifts and hovers. So I'm keeping generally the same shape and trying to balance holding this leg. Carefully come back down. Five-pointed star. Reconnect with the grounding and the lifting. Shift your way over to the other side. Little bend with your knee. Lift your leg out. It's like your star tipped over. And if your leg is wobbling a little bit like mine is, embrace that challenge. It means the next time you do this, you're going to be a little bit better at it. Lower down carefully. We're going to do that one more time to each side. Reconnect with the grounding and the lifting. Shift to the right. Find that floating star. Lower carefully. Shift yourself over to the left. And you'll see as I lift my leg, my toes are spread out. And that's helping me to engage the muscles in my leg and create stability. Lower that down. Come back into your 5-pointed star. Hands come into the heart. So I'm going to exhale and lower myself down. Right down into a forward bend. From the forward bend, I shift my weight from side to side. Bending one knee, bending the other knee. The next time that you shift over to the left, we can stop right there and just hold that side. If your knee on this side is healthy and you don't have any discomfort, you can start to lower down into a toe balance. So I'm right up on the ball of my left foot. My right toes are lifted and spread. I'm using my right fingers for a bit of balance help until I find my stability and I feel confident to lift my hands. If you need to, you can stay like this. This is a challenging version by itself. But if you find stability, go ahead and take the hands into the heart and then embrace that wobbling that happens in this pose. Steady your gaze on one point, steady your breath, and feel how that creates stability in the rest of your body. And if you do fall out of it, just find that place where you can laugh at yourself, because it's just yoga. It's not that serious. We'll roll back into the middle and give yourself a little shift from side to side. We're preparing to go over to the other side, but many of us are different on one side than the other side. So if the knee on the right side is different, you might want to stay with this version, or you might want to stay with just swaying. It's up to what you feel like. But if your knee on the right side is healthy, go ahead and lower yourself down into a toe balance. Use your fingertips on the mat, or you could even put a block right here so that you have a higher surface to hold on to. And we just work on steadying our breath, keeping a smooth inhale and exhale. Don't hold it. Steady your drishti, point your gaze on one spot. If you fall out of the pose, give yourself a moment. You can laugh at yourself. You can just enjoy that challenge. Yoga is always hard. And then we lower the hands down and come back into center. Sway it out. Moving back through center, and just give yourself a breath to drop into your forward bend. Inhale yourself halfway up, get a flat back. Hands come onto the hips, inhale the rest of the way up. And then I'm just going to heel toe my feet in a little bit so that I can step up to the top of the mat. I'll give myself a little space. So, one of the most challenging balance poses and a really good pose to address your ego is a toe balance in any different version. We just did a squatting toe balance, but now we're just going to come into a regular standing toe balance. You're in mountain pose, you lift the heels up, you press the toes and the ball of the foot into the mat, and then you can marvel at how challenging this relatively simple looking pose actually is. If you feel your ankles buckling out, connect to this sense of drawing the arches of the feet together, drawing up through the inner thighs, and that will help to stabilize you. But use your drishti and your breath as well. Arms come out. Now, if your knees are okay, we're going to start to lower. You can stop at any point as you come down. If your knees say no, it's a no. And then maybe you find yourself in a toe balance. Take the hands into the heart. Let your knees start to open. You're going to drop your hands down in between. The weight sits back toward your tailbone. Let your hips drop back. Bring your legs out in front. We're going to rock the knees side to side. Now bringing the arms into it as you sway over to one side. I'm dropping my back arms, spiraling up. Coming back up. And over to the other side, spiraling that way. Make sure that you don't leave your hand on the mat too long, that you start to lean on it. And for this side, you can come down into a forward bend. Coming up. And forward bend on the other side. Lifting back up, swinging the legs into center. Going to bring the feet up. Carefully roll yourself down onto the mat. Try to keep the legs as still as you can. Draw the knees in. Let yourself rock from side to side.